Hi, my name is Holly Dickin, and I'm an instructor for the Department of Mathematical Sciences at Ball State University. I typically teach pre-calculus classes such as intermediate and college algebra, as well as trigonometry, all the way up through to business calculus. I also frequently teach liberal arts mathematics, also known as quantitative reasoning courses as well. And today, I'm just wanting to share with you some tips and tricks that I often share with my students on how to study to learn, not just to get an A on a test or quiz, but to actually learn the content, and which will hopefully lead to getting those higher grades. So first, I want to talk about doing math versus reading math. So often, some classes, you can often just read over the content as you're reviewing for a test or quiz, and that will be sufficient. But in math, if you're just reading over your notes or reading over the textbook, it's really not going to sink in as much, and you're not going to really get as much out of it as if you are doing the problems. So even if you have an example that's completely written out in your notes, get a scratch sheet of paper and write out that example on the side as you're doing, as you're reading those notes. Same thing with the book. You get to an example, have a scratch sheet of paper out, write that example down. You might find that you can do most of the problem on your own, or you might find the areas where you actually need some additional assistance or where you need to look back at your notes. And hopefully by the time you do that a couple of times, you don't need to look back at the notes or the textbook as much anymore. Additionally, we always prepare for our tests and quizzes, but it's really good if you can redo some of those problems, especially problems that you've missed. Doing it quickly before too much time has passed is really good because you just recently studied for the test. You have your content there that you were using to review. Try to see what errors you made and learn from them. Remember that your process of testing and taking quizzes along the way is part of the learning process. That will also be a great way to study if you're redoing quizzes and tests in order to study for additional tests and maybe your final exam. If you're in a class that there's different versions offered, make friends with somebody next to you. They probably have a different version. Maybe they'd be willing to write out some problems for you to practice that came from their test or quiz, and you can write out some problems that came from your test or quiz and exchange them. You don't have to give them your test or quiz because you might not want, or they might not want, to share the feedback or the score that you got on that test, but it would be great if you just wrote out those problems and you could practice them. Note cards, all bold. I just don't think we use them enough in mathematics. So yes, they're helpful for definitions and key ideas, but they're also a great place to put down some of those test and quiz problems. As an instructor, when I have to create a quiz, maybe I only want it to be 5 or 10 questions, I want to make sure I select those questions that I really want my students to know. So those are important problems. So if you put the problem on one side and then you flip it over, and on the back side, maybe you write the steps to solving that problem, or you write out the solution to that problem, you'll have a series of quiz questions to study for your test, or a set of test questions to study for your final exam. And it's just going to make that process so much easier. Plus, as you're writing that down, as you're writing the solution on the back or the steps on the back of how to solve, you're studying just by making your note cards. And if you're trying to study before the quiz and the test, remember you can also do the same thing with examples from your notes. If your instructor took class time or built an online lecture and went over some sample problems, those are probably pretty important questions. So write out the problem on one side and maybe the steps on the back. Use those note cards, and it's just nice. You'll have a nice pile by the end of the semester that you can refer to. Can't stress enough, if your instructor is willing to make you a review assignment, do them. And if you're running out of time, don't just do the easy problems that you know. Focus on those problems that look a little bit more challenging so that you really can work on the problems that you need to practice on. You don't need to practice the problems that you already know as much as you need to practice the problems that look uncomfortable to you. So practice those and work on them. Hopefully you do the whole assignment, but if you're running out of time, make sure if you're working on the review assignment that you focus on those harder problems, because that's really important for you to work on those, not just the easy ones. And last but not least, very important, ask for help. Your instructor is, I'd say, an email away from being able to get assistance. If they have office hours, use that time to stop by. Even if you don't even know what question to ask, but you're just feeling uncomfortable or you just feel like you're needing some guidance, take advantage of those office hours. Or send a meeting request. Maybe you're not sure why you got some questions wrong on a test or quiz, or maybe you didn't understand that example that went over in class today. Take advantage of those opportunities. Remember, if you're doing a problem wrong over and over and over again, you're not learning as much as if you do the problem. There's academic persistence or that struggle. Of course, that's important. But at some point, you've got to identify, I'm not making progress on this anymore. I'm getting frustrated. I need to take a break. Maybe there's a student assistant in the class you can ask for help with, but you also probably have a tutoring center or a learning center that has individual tutors available to help you as well. Do not ask for help. You're not in this alone. There are so many resources out there to help you. You've just got to raise your hand, send that email, stop by office hours, and make sure that you seek that assistance when you need it. Thanks for listening, and good luck in your classes.